Good evening and welcome to Watching Washington. I'm Sophie McLaughlin.
And I'm Morgan Kane. Let's get to what is happening this week. On Wednesday, President Trump and President Putin had a 90-minute phone call discussing a possible end to the Ukraine war. Trump also made a phone call to President Zelensky after he finished speaking with Putin.
We had a very good conversation with President Putin yesterday, and we also had a very good conversation. I did in both cases with President Zelensky, and I think we're going to be able to do something. I think we're going to be able to make a deal, and I hope so, because it's a horrible war. It's a very terrible, bloody war with 1.5 million soldiers at least already dead on the battlefield, lying all over the fields like nobody's ever seen anything like it certainly since the Second World War. And so I think we're going to be able to do something. We're working with President Zelensky and with President Putin, and my impression is that I know that President Zelensky wants to make a deal, and I also feel that I know that President Putin wants to make a deal. I wanted to know that before I began any detailed discussions, but the meeting and the conversation, also the meeting with Steve Witkoff in Moscow, was a very successful one. And my phone call with him was a very successful one.
According to BBC News, President Zelensky was not okay with being the second one President Trump called that day. He is worried that Trump and Putin are trying to go over his head with negotiations about Ukraine's future. Zelensky said Ukraine will not be able to accept any agreements made without its involvement.
According to the Associated Press, Tulsi Gabbard was sworn in as Director of National Intelligence Friday afternoon by a 52-48 vote. Prior to the vote, Democratic Senator Schumer pleaded for Republicans who were on the fence to vote against the confirmation. However, the Republicans who were initially weary of her nomination mainly voted in approval, except for former Senate Leader Mitch McConnell of Kentucky. Democrats are praising the Republican.
I think Senator McConnell is starting a new career, and an admirable one, voting his conscience and standing strong for the civil rights and liberties of this country.
On these two really important national security considerations, Hegseth with very little to no experience, Gabbard with little to no experience in really questionable conduct, Mitch McConnell voted to protect national security.
A high-stakes prisoner exchange between the U.S. and Russia has brought an American teacher home, while raising new questions about diplomacy and detainee negotiations. An American teacher who the U.S. said had been wrongfully detained by Russia has been released. Mark Fogel landed on U.S. soil Tuesday night, according to a White House post on X. He was then taken to the White House for a news conference with President Trump. National Security Advisor Mike Waltz said an exchange was made with Russia for the 61-year-old's release, calling it a show of good faith. Fogel taught history at the Anglo-American School in Moscow for nearly a decade. In 2021, he was arrested for carrying 17 grams of cannabis, which his lawyer said was used for back pain. An accused Russian money launderer was released in exchange. He's been in the U.S. custody since 2022.
A new variant of the bird flu titled H5N1 has been detected in 6 herds of dairy cattle in Nevada, and experts warn this could potentially pose a greater risk to humans. H5N1 is a common strain of avian influenza, usually found in migratory birds, while it often doesn't harm wild birds. It can be deadly to other animals, including poultry and livestock. According to the USDA, there are over 30 confirmed cases of infected cattle across California and Nevada. Scientists are particularly concerned that if the virus mutates further, it could continue to spread more easily among livestock and humans, a scenario that would require a serious public health response. The USDA has reported that this variant is thought to have a mutation making it easier for the virus to infect mammals, including people. While the current public health risk remains low, scientists are closely monitoring the situation.
President Donald Trump has proposed buying Greenland, a semi-autonomous territory of Denmark. Denmark has responded with a satirical counteroffer suggesting they should buy California. How much would it cost to buy California? Denmark thinks $1 trillion should cover it. The petition circulating around the Nordic nation has the goal of raising enough money for Denmark to buy the Golden State, and it has already received more than 200,000 signatures. According to the crowdfunding effort, Denmark would benefit from owning California's weather, tech dominance, and strong avocado supply. Meant as a joke, this petition pokes fun at the idea of countries buying territories, a concept not commonly seen in modern times.
4 weeks after the Gaza ceasefire, aid agencies stress that humanitarian assistance must be accelerated. Doctors Without Borders warn that resources remain immense, despite efforts such as mobile clinics and water distribution in northern Gaza. Over 500,000 people have now returned to the devastated north, where shelter, food, and water remain critical and sparse. Winter conditions have worsened hardships for displaced families, despite an increase in aid deliveries, where 759 trucks entered Gaza in one day. Agencies say food supplies still remain insufficient. Hamas has delayed hostage releases, accusing Israel of violating the ceasefire by restricting aid and blocking essential supplies. Israel denies these claims, stating that large quantities of aid have been delivered. The United Nations and other entities have requested more temporary shelters, but Israel has reportedly refused. A diplomat with knowledge of the ceasefire talk told CNN that the United Nations, Qatar, and other countries have requested to deliver temporary shelters to Gaza, but again confirmed that Israel had refused. A recent report from AP, however, revealed that Hamas has agreed to release 3 hostages. This news brings hope to locals that the ceasefire will continue for a longer time, and that the war's end may be in sight.
Up next, a coin in your wallet may become obsolete.
And have you checked Google Maps recently? There was a major change. Stay with us. More Watching Washington next.
Being involved in the 3-year program at Purdue made it easier to say to myself I could get done in 3 years. The 3-year program helped save me a ton of money. Not completing my 4th year, I would save around $30,000. It will give you an advantage, if anything. Doing the 3-year program at Purdue has shown me that I have motivation to do whatever it takes to get my degree.
Hi there, my name is Vikram Jaithlak and I'm the founder and president of the Purdue chapter of the University Blood Initiative. Over the past 2 years, we've been able to collect over 300 pints of blood to be donated to local hospitals, and you can be the next one to help out.
I donate my blood at the University Blood Initiative.
Hi, I just donated blood through the University Blood Initiative.
Hi, I just donated blood through the University Blood Initiative at Purdue.
Right, I donated my blood through the University Blood Initiative at Purdue.
And I donated my blood at University Blood Initiative at Purdue.
Are you looking for a new hobby?
Or do you want to have a fun evening with your friends?
Then come climb to new heights at the Co-Rec Climbing Wall.
Football. It's the best time of the year. You know what else is great? The world's largest and fastest mascot. You can't have Purdue football without the trains. Look for the Reamer Club outside Stewart Center, 12 to 5 p.m. on Fridays before home football games, for your chance to ride the Boilermaker Special for free. See you then!
You're watching Fast Track News.
President Donald Trump has signed an executive order banning the use of paper straws within federal agencies, mandating a return to plastic straws. The president cited personal dissatisfaction with paper straws, stating they don't work and are prone to breaking. This decision reverses previous policies aimed at reducing single-use plastics in federal operations.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Next, this is an executive order relating to the use of paper straws. As you've consistently identified, nobody really likes paper straws.
Number one trending. Can you believe it? A paper straw was number one trending for 3 days or something.
The environmental impact of plastic straws versus paper straws is entirely unclear. This has cost both the government and private industry an absolute ton of money and left consumers all over the country wildly dissatisfied with their straws. So we're asking aspects of the federal government, federal departments and agencies to look at their existing procurement processes, and we're asking your Domestic Policy Council to look holistically at this issue to address it, and it really is something that affects ordinary Americans in their everyday lives.
We're going back to plastic straws. These things don't work. I've had them many times, and on occasion they break, they explode. If something's hot, they don't last very long, like a matter of minutes, sometimes a matter of seconds. It's a ridiculous situation. So we're going back to plastic straws. I think it's okay. And I don't think that plastic's going to affect a shark very much as they're munching their way through the ocean. Okay.
In addition, President Trump has also directed the U.S. Treasury Department to halt the production of new pennies, citing the high cost of minting them.
After 4 years of waiting, America will finally get to see their favorite four-legged friends walk their own red carpet. The prestigious event, known as the Westminster Dog Show, returned to Madison Square Garden this past Tuesday after being relocated since 2021 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The winner was Monty, a 5-year-old giant schnauzer from New Jersey, who stole the spotlight with his charm and his tricks. Monty made history as the first giant schnauzer to win Best in Show in 149 years of the Westminster Dog Show. Sadly, this will be Monty's last competition as he wraps up his competitive canine career to be a regular stay-at-home dog.
Earlier this week, a controversial move from President Donald Trump is making waves. In a surprising announcement, Trump has declared that the Gulf of Mexico will now be renamed the Gulf of America. Trump claims the name change reflects the U.S.'s economic and historical ties to the region, saying that America needs to reclaim its heritage. He argues that the current name doesn't properly represent what he calls American waters. The decision is part of a wider initiative to restore patriotic naming, a program hinted at during his previous administration. Major tech companies, including Google and Apple, have already updated their maps to reflect the new name, at least for U.S. users. But the announcement hasn't gone unchallenged. Mexico's president and other world leaders have criticized the move, calling it an attempt to rewrite history. Many point out that the Gulf of Mexico has been internationally recognized under its current name for centuries, and geographic organizations have no plans to formally recognize the change. Some supporters of Trump praise the move as a bold stand for American identity, while others see it as a distraction from more pressing issues.
With the introduction of the Secure and Verified Elections Act, some voting rights advocates and legal experts are warning that the bill could create new barriers for women voters, especially those voting after a name change. The bill seeks to strengthen the voter identification process by requiring voters to provide identification documents that meet up-to-date legal standards. However, critics point out that this could create additional difficulties for women who vote after changing their name, especially those who change their name due to marriage or divorce. If the new rules require that a voter's identification documents match their voter registration records exactly, many women could run into problems because of their name change, said Amy Stewart, an election law expert. This means they may need additional legal documents, such as marriage or divorce licenses, to prove their identity. The bill is still in the consideration stage in Congress and expected to be voted on in the coming weeks. In the meantime, several civil rights organizations have indicated that they will be closely monitoring the bill's progress and considering legal action to ensure that all eligible voters, including women affected by the name change, can vote.
On Thursday, President Donald Trump signed the executive action known as the Fair and Reciprocal Plan. The order requires that U.S. tariffs on imports match the tax rates charged by other countries. The president said the move will balance trade and boost domestic revenue, making American goods more competitive. Trump has ordered federal trade officials to investigate plans for the new tariffs and report back with recommendations. Reciprocal tariffs were one of Trump's core campaign pledges. He emphasized the need for a fairer trade policy that ensures U.S. companies are not at a disadvantage in the global market.
Yeah, India traditionally is the highest, just about the highest tariffed country. They charge more tariffs than any other country. And I mean, we'll be talking about that, but again, whatever they charge us, we're charging them. So it works out very well. It's a beautiful, simple system. And we don't have to worry about, gee, we're charging too much or too little.
Now, these tariffs will not take effect immediately as the administration reviews trade policies and determines its next steps. With trade officials now studying the policy, the next step depends on their recommendations and how the world responds to the latest shift in the U.S. trade policy.
Our in-studio guest this week is Professor Jay McCann.
The full interview just ahead on Watching Washington.
Mates.
Buenos dias.
Bonjour.
Hello from South Korea.
I'm studying abroad in Valencia, Spain this semester. I'm studying abroad in Sydney, Australia.
I'm studying abroad in Madrid, Spain.
Studying at Seoul National University.
At ISAE Supero in Toulouse, France.
And I'm really getting to enjoy meeting all the new people and the culture.
How different it is from Purdue University.
It is an absolutely fantastic experience.
I'm living my best life.
I can't wait to see you guys all overseas soon. A bientôt.
Adios.
Nos vemos de España.
I'm Rachel. I'm 19 years old. I'm a sophomore in computer engineering here at Purdue, and I'm the president of DAO. So DAO stands for Dance All Out, and it's kind of like a community where all dancers of different skill levels and artists have a space to express themselves and be artists and perform. We perform at things like the AAA Night Market and the VA, the Variation Showcase, at the end of the semester. We even had our own showcase last year, and that was really exciting. DAO not only offers like weekly classes and performance opportunities, but kind of like a really strong community / family to do it with. When people talk about college, or when you see in like coming of age movies, it's all about like the main character finding like the place where they belong, whether it's in school or like extracurricular or like with their friends or another hobby. But like this could be the place where you find like your coming of age moment, and like it could be the place where you discover like a big part of your life.
We have Purdue Department of Political Science Professor Jay McCann here this week.
With tariffs being implemented all over the world, Professor McCann is here to provide insight on what this means for the relationship between the U.S. and Mexico. Let's go now to Connor, who is standing by with this week's interview. Connor, take it away.
Thank you. I am here with Professor Jay McCann of the Department of Political Science. On top of United States politics, he also specializes in relations with Mexico. So with the recent tariffs that Donald Trump is threatening to impose, we would just like to discuss about how this could affect relations. So my first question, could you give us a recap on the state of the relations between the United States and Mexico back in Donald Trump's first presidency?
Oh, okay. Well, maybe even broader context might be useful for your viewers. You know, the United States has had a very up and down relationship with Mexico. Of course, you know, we took much of the country's territory during a war. Okay, now that happened in the mid-1800s, so it was a long time ago, but nevertheless, there are longstanding sort of potential tensions between the two countries. In the early 90s, you had a bunch of what's called neoliberal reforms, free trade reforms that were enacted not only in Mexico and Canada, but also in the United States, but also Canada, and that formed the North American Free Trade area. Okay, so and that was the sort of dominant attitude towards Mexico from the United States over the last 30 odd years, that what you want to do is make trade easier, allow for, you know, freer movement of people and goods and services and all that kind of stuff. What happened though in the early 2000s is there was much greater concern about terrorism after the 9/11 terrorist attacks, and much more anxiety about the border and securing the border area. We also saw lots of Mexican migration into the US beginning in the 90s, and that was in response to significant labor demands. So especially in this part of Indiana, it's obvious what immigrants provide. And it was sort of an open secret that you could circumvent documentation practices because the laws governing migration are very inadequate and antiquated. So what happened, I guess, with that complicated kind of backdrop as context, Trump takes office in 2017, and he disparaged throughout the campaigns Mexico and Mexican citizens living abroad in the United States. He painted with a very broad stroke, arguing that, you know, they were criminals and there's somehow something suspicious about them and the like. So that didn't, you know, start him off on a very positive footing in national relations with Mexico, but nevertheless, you know, it was ended up being a lot of kind of sound and fury with very few kind of true policy outcomes. There was effectively, well, after running on a campaign to build a wall, very little of the wall was built between the two countries, much less having Mexico pay for it, which was part of a campaign theme in 2016. There wasn't any significant movement on immigration. There wasn't even a significant increase in deportation, although among Mexican immigrants in the country, the rhetoric certainly did heighten anxieties about U.S. political authorities. So not much of a legacy there insofar as hemispheric relations from the first Trump term. Now, as we start the second Trump term, maybe you're going in that direction, but you tell me where you'd like to.
Yeah, we covered a story last week in a show about the 30-day pause on the tariffs after Mexico sent 10,000 troops to the border. So is this kind of like a sign of goodwill between the United States and Mexico?
Well, let's hope it breeds some goodwill. The new president of Mexico, her name, the first woman president ever in Mexico, okay, her name is Sheinbaum, who has a U.S. graduate degree. She went to graduate school in California. She speaks very good English, unlike her predecessor.
Yeah, that could only help with.
Yeah, well, she seems rather astute politically, and you know, and she seems mindful of kind of Trump's approach to things and aware, right, of who she's dealing with. So it would be nice to think it's the start of goodwill. Certainly the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, himself a Cuban immigrant, or from his family background, he speaks Spanish, and it could be a good harbinger of, you know, a more positive outlook towards Latin America. So we can keep hopeful on that front. But I think in terms of recent decisions and the recent context, I think the more proximate cause of the pause for the tariffs was the immediate reaction from the U.S. stock market. Okay, so when the tariffs were threatened, you know, the day they were supposed to take it back with Canada and Mexico, we saw early returns, right? Given time zone differences and so on, you can see what's happening in the global stock market, and that casts a shadow over trading in the American setting. You could see that there was going to be a very abrupt and very significant decline. quite noticeable, way beyond just the day-to-day, up 0.5%, down 0.25% kind of
Yeah.
thing, if you follow stock market.
So if these tariffs were to take place, how would that affect the economy of both countries?
Okay, well, I think, yeah, well, to finish the point, I think, um, um, the Trump administration early returns suggest that there's really no real opposition in Congress. And the people around him give no meaningful sort of pushback on any policy proposals or anything like that. And so, what we are seeing though is a kind of implicit but important check on presidential authority and policymaking through these economic levers. Okay, so the market disciplined the Trump administration. To your point, hopefully there's some goodwill that emerges from it as well. Pausing the tariffs could be the basis then of more substantive positive relations. But, for the time being, it's that, economic agents and what they are signaling in terms of risk, okay, was that has been the driver so far. The economic implications, I think it's easy to channel mainstream economics teachers here. I mean, if any of your viewers, it's going to be students watching this mostly, or people on campus. Okay, so it's very, I would encourage all of your viewers to take economics classes if and that can fit into their plans of study. And I think, there's some fundamental lessons being, shown here. So think of this as a collective learning moment for our country. What you're doing by imposing tariffs on incoming products, okay, is you raise the price. So if you want to buy a washing machine, say, and you have your eye on one from Germany because you believe they make good washing machines. Let's assume they do. Okay. So they come in and the machine does everything you want it to do. So it comes in, 25% tariff means that the price is, well, you apply that much, okay, to the people taking it in, importing it, okay, and they will naturally pass it on to the consumer, okay. And so the upshot then is you're going to be paying more for your washing machine. That's too bad, okay, but I think what economists would say is even worse than that.
Oh, no.
If the U.S. puts a 25% tariff on things coming in from Germany, it's natural to think that the Germans will apply a similar tariff to anything in the U.S.
And that's a pretty large number too.
Yeah,
25%.
well, I don't know. I mean, they're just, I don't know that there's strong economic theory coming out of the White House on tariff regulation. So 25% just seemed to be a number. I don't know. I don't know the rationale, frankly. I don't know that anybody knows the rationale. But no, really, I'm speaking as somebody who's not a partisan in this role or anything.
Of course.
I'm reflecting what I think is a consensus opinion and my own belief that it's hard to see what the strategy is. That being said, it's natural to think then that U.S. exporters will suffer from retaliatory tariffs, and so there will be a trade war. And so Americans, especially a lot of Purdue graduates, will get their jobs in the manufacturing sector. I mean, we graduate lots and lots of applied scientists and engineers and people who like to make things, and especially making things for export where there's great worldwide demand. And so the price of those goods and services would increase in the context of a trade war. And so you can think of it as everybody is a bit worse off. The degree to which we're all worse off will depend on how the tariffs are applied, what the level is, and so on. I think, to be fair to the administration, I just got done saying I didn't see the rationale. The stated belief coming out of the administration is that somehow the tariffs that you apply, the money that you get, can go to the U.S. Treasury and somehow offset money coming from other kind of taxing streams, and that that will promote over the long run domestic American industry. If we were having this conversation about 140 years ago, you could maybe see the rationale there, how it might be, like you protect your homegrown industries at the fledgling stage by blocking out potential competitors. Okay, that's not the world we're living in right now, of course. And if you buy a car, okay, whatever make model, chances are, even the so-called, U.S. brand, something from General Motors or whatever, it's going to be full of parts that were manufactured from abroad, and especially across North America. And so each, so I don't know what, some part of the engine or something, or the frame that the car is built on, if it's manufactured in northern Mexico, when you import that to do fine grain work in, say, one of the U.S. southern states where there are a lot of car plants, it's going to come and whatever it costs, you'll put a tariff onto that. And so the tariffs aggregate at every stage of the production process. And so the belief is that this will help drive inflation. It's not the only thing that might drive inflation for consumers. There are other policies that might also boost inflation.
Final question, since we are almost out of time.
Yeah.
Do you think that this 30-day pause could become indefinite if relations maybe increase between the two sides?
Do you think
is there a possibility?
The tariff idea will just get tabled?
Yes.
It would be smart policy to do that. I think, again, to reflect, I think is a dominant consensus left, right, and center from Wall Street Journal all the way forward. Okay, that would be the preferred policy. Now, a lot depends on how our trading partners respond, because they are key actors as well. And,
there's a lot of people affected by this law nation.
Well, and many of the trading partners around the world are deeply offended, and in many cases, leaders have their own constituencies, and a sense of national identity has been sort of provoked in many cases. So whether they will dial down, even if the U.S. decides to dial down, well, I don't know. Things have become much more disrupted over the last couple of weeks. I believe that is a feature, not a bug. At least it falls in line with the stated commitments made during the campaign. So we'll see what the outcome is.
Yeah, I think we're all looking forward to seeing where this goes. Very interesting. Thank you so much for your time.
Sure.
That's all we have time for today. Thank you, Professor McCann, for being with us. And thank you for watching.
See you next time on Watching Washington.